The game of hockey is considered to be the most luck-based sport in North America. In fact, in 2017, Vox released an article on this very phenomenon, and this was their findings. Chess is an extremely technical game that requires next to no luck, therefore it is placed on the far right. Gambling, on the other hand, is based on purely luck, so it's placed on the far left. As for the NBA, well, it definitely still has luck, but is highly influenced by individual players, which is why a guy like LeBron James has been to the finals 8 times, and if you contrast this against hockey, Sidney Crosby has been there 4 times. And so the NBA is placed on the right side of the spectrum. This is where other major leagues sit, and this is where the NHL sits. So as you can see, hockey has a clear separation from other major league sports. And this is because hockey is an extremely team-oriented sport, which is why there's been many amazing underdog stories. There are so many variables, which is why the formation of super teams tend to fail. And this very nature is why the NHL also requires a lot of depth up and down the lineup. And because of the luck-based elements that make up hockey, there has been many great cases of one-season wonders, where a player comes out of nowhere, they eclipse all their career highs, many of them conveniently doing it around contract time. In today's video, we're going to go over 7 of the biggest current one-season wonders, so make sure to comment down below any other one-season wonders you can think of. And press subscribe for some more awesome hockey content. And before we start this video, I do want to preface it. By no means am I saying these players are bad and they can definitely still bounce back to their previous production, but rather uncovering players who exploded in production and haven't come close to those numbers since. Let's get right into this video. We will start with perhaps the most underrated player in the NHL, and also a personal favorite of mine, which is Viktor Arvidsson. And to be honest, not many people are giving Arvidsson the proper respect he deserves. He's a premier goal-scoring winger who's also on a very team-friendly contract, as he's only making $4.25 million for the next 5 years. Drafted in 2014, Arvidsson basically came out of nowhere. And after 2 seasons of jumbling back and forth from the minors, Viktor in 2017 would break out, putting up 31 goals. 23 goals more than the previous season. And Arvidsson would prove that it wasn't a fluke because in 2018 he would put up another 29 goal season. And finally, in 2019, Viktor Arvidsson would put up 34 goals and 58 games, which means he was on pace for just shy of 50 goals. Arvidsson is definitely not getting the recognition of a 50 goal scorer. And he's definitely not getting paid like a 50 goal scorer. However, this season has not been the same story, as Arvidsson has only put up 15 goals in 57 games. So I guess the question is, was this season a one-hit wonder? Or will Arvidsson come back to 50 goal form? Next, we have one of the biggest breakout stars from the past decade, which is William Carlson. Originally drafted by the Anaheim Ducks, Carlson had a fairly rocky entry into the NHL. He bounced around from the AHL and the NHL, got traded to Columbus, and he was never able to find his groove. In his best season, he put up 25 points in 81 games, well, until he was drafted in the expansion draft to the Vegas Golden Knights, where William Carlson would have one of the most storybook breakout seasons in NHL history. Because Carlson went from an average bottom 6 player to an all-star. Because in 2017, Carlson would put up 43 goals, 78 points. He scored 6 goals to 43 goals basically overnight. Just incredible. And this was really a byproduct of being in that better environment. You know, the team was so full of energy and he had far more responsibility. And to be honest, he flourished. However, the past 2 seasons, we've actually been seeing a trend of regression. 24 goals last season and 15 this season. And I still think Carlson is a great player, but his totals are far from that 43 goal season we saw 2 years ago. And you'd have to think that Golden Knights thought the same thing when they inked him to that 1-year, $5.25 million bridge deal, which just goes to show that they didn't even know what to expect, because that much improvement in that short of time was just unprecedented. Next, we have the peculiar case of Alexander Wennberg. Wennberg was originally drafted 14th overall in the 2013 NHL draft, and he was a highly intelligent playmaking center. He progressed really well in Sweden and entered the Blue Jackets lineup in 2014. He wasn't disappointing by any means, but he definitely wasn't prolific, as he only put up 8 goals and 20 points. And in 2017, Wennberg had his breakout season where he put up a career-high 59 points in 80 games. And at this point, Wennberg was showing all signs of a potential bona fide first-line center. He was hardworking, he had skill, and he was extremely intelligent. And Wennberg would also sign a pretty massive deal for $29.4 million over 6 years. And at the time, this was seen as an absolute steal considering he was showing huge upside. However, Wennberg in the past 2 seasons has shown drastic regression. In fact, in 2019, Alexander Wennberg had 2 goals. in 75 games. Now, Berg has always been considered that more pass-first centerman, but this production is pretty mind-boggling when you consider his skill level, and it's going to be pretty interesting to see if Berg is able to turn his game around. Next, we have Gustafson, and this one has always confused me. Originally drafted in 2012 by the Edmonton Oilers, Gustafson opted to take a long journey in the NHL before signing with the Blackhawks. And Gustafson proved to be a tremendous offensive defenseman in Sweden and slowly transitioned to that game into North America. He did take a while bouncing back and forth from the NHL and the minors, but he quickly developed that elite offensive toolset. And in 2017, he made his first appearance where he put up 16 points in 35 games, and then finally, in 2018, Gustafson would have his big breakout season, as he registered an astounding 60 points in 79 games, which of course is an extremely impressive stat line coming from a breakout offensive defenseman. And at this time, analysts were concerned with his defensive game, as he did have some pretty big glaring holes. But when you're producing at that rate, 60 points in 79 games, it tends to make up for your faults. So flash forward to 2019, he isn't producing at quite the same rate, and his defensive flaws are becoming more apparent. And so much so, they are basically diminishing all his trade value, because in 59 games he had 26 points, still respectable, but basically he was traded for a bag of pucks to the Calgary Flames, as the Chicago Blackhawks received a single third-round pick for a defenseman who's 1 year removed from a 60-point breakout season. Now, Gustafson is 28, which is a bit concerning, but again, he's only 1 year removed from that huge breakout season. So I guess the question is, will he come back and perhaps play even better in a new environment? And will the Hawks regret on trading him for basically nothing? Next, we have Jeff Skinner, and Skinner is a very interesting case. Drafted as an undersized goal-scoring winger, Skinner shocked everyone as he stepped into the league in 2010, just months after he was drafted, and Skinner put up 31 goals to win the Calder Trophy. And after this, Skinner would continue to produce. He did have his ups and downs playing in Carolina, but he was still a premium goal scorer. So fast forward to the fall of 2018, Jeff Skinner was approaching his contract year. And the rumor was, well, he wanted to get paid. And he wanted to get paid so much so, it forced the Carolina Hurricanes to trade Skinner for a very abysmal return. Because Skinner was traded for Cliff Pu, who's currently in the ECHL, and a second, third, and sixth round pick. All this for a former 30 goal scorer. So this return was definitely head scratching. And during the 2018-2019 season, Skinner would put up a career high 40 goals, and this career high would earn Skinner a monster contract. 8 years, $72 million. And just for a quick reference, here's some players that are making less money than Jeff Skinner. Matthew Tkachuk, Sebastian Aho, Mark Stone, David Pastrnak. And what makes the situation so unique is Jeff Skinner was paid like a top player in the league. And don't get me wrong, he still is a good player and can bounce back, but Jeff Skinner has 14 goals and 9 assists this season. Just absurd. His on-ice impact has been pretty horrendous, and many people blame it on the fact that he isn't getting regular ice time with Jack Eichel, which I mean is definitely fair, but I would be hard pressed to say that a $72 million player has to play with a top player to score. Now again, I am a fan of Jeff Skinner, but he definitely cashed in on one season where everything just clicked right. So hopefully Skinner can put the pieces back together, because this contract might seriously hinder the Sabres for the next 7 years. Next, we have Jiri Hudler, and Hudler had a long tenure in the NHL. He broke into the league after lighting up the Czech League and was developing into a very respectable secondary scorer, having 3 seasons surpassing 50 points. Well, that is until he joined the Flames in 2014, where Hudler went from a respectable scorer to an all-star, as he put up 31 goals and 76 points and led a very young Flames team into the playoffs just out of nowhere. He broke all his career highs and looked like an entirely different player. However, this was very short-lived, as Jiri Hudler would only put up 35 points the next season for Calgary. He got traded to Florida, and then notoriously demanded drugs on an airplane, tried to pee on a food court, and then threatened a bunch of air flight attendants. So this was definitely a one-hit wonder that ended in a relatively prolific manner. I would say a negative manner, but prolific, I guess. And lastly, we have David Ayers. The date is February 22nd, 2020. The Toronto Maple Leafs are matched up against the Hurricanes, and this game would see not 1, but 2 goalies injured. And so now it is David Ayers' time. He steps in, he does let in 2 squeakers, but he won the game like a rock star. So not only is David Ayers a one season wonder, but he is a one game wonder, as David Ayers has one career win and one career game. And after this, David Ayers would have the audacity to retire and go back to driving a Zamboni. Just ridiculous, man. Like, you're just gonna play one game? Anyways guys, can you name any current or previous one-hit wonder? Comment down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to press that subscribe button for some more awesome hockey content. See you guys later.